I'll never forget the moment a friend looked me in the eye and said, "I just don't trust you anymore." It felt like a punch to the gut. My heart started racing, my stomach dropped, and all I could think was, how did we get here? Trust isn't just something we have, it's something we build. And the hard truth, when it's broken, it doesn't come back with a simple "I'm sorry" or a grand gesture. It has to be rebuilt piece by piece over time. Now, if you've ever lost someone's trust, maybe a partner, a friend, a coworker, you know how devastating it feels. And if you've ever been on the other side, if someone broke your trust, you know the struggle of deciding whether to rebuild or walk away. So, how do we even begin to repair trust when it's shattered? Trust isn't all or nothing. It's built in small moments. I used to think trust was like a glass whole and unbroken until a single betrayal shattered it. But that's not how trust actually works. Trust isn't one big thing, it's a collection of small things. Years ago, a therapist told me something that completely changed how I think about trust. She said, trust is built in micro moments. It's the tiny decisions we make every day that tell someone, "You are safe with me." Think about the closest relationships in your life, the people you trust the most. Why do you trust them? It's probably not because of one grand sweeping gesture. It's because of the little things. The way they remember to check in when you're struggling, the way they respect your boundaries without making you feel guilty, the way they listen, really listen without trying to fix or dismiss what you're saying. Now let's flip that. Think about a time when you started to lose trust in someone. It probably didn't happen all at once. Maybe it started with a broken promise that seemed small at first, then a few inconsistencies, a time when they weren't honest, but they had a really good reason, a moment when you needed them, but they weren't there. See, trust doesn't just shatter, it erodes. And when we want to rebuild trust, whether we're the ones who broke it or the ones deciding if we can trust again, it won't happen in one big moment either. It has to be rebuilt the same way it was built in the first place, in those small, consistent moments. Research backs this up. One of the most well-known studies on trust, led by Dr. John Gottman, found that relationships thrive on what he calls sliding door moments. These are the seemingly insignificant moments where we either turn towards someone or away from them. Let's say you're sitting with your partner after a long day and they casually say, "Ugh, work was exhausting today." That's a sliding door moment. Do you acknowledge them, ask a follow-up question, offer support, or do you barely respond and keep scrolling on your phone? Individually, moments like this seem tiny, but over time they add up. 100 small moments of turning towards someone, that's how trust deepens. 100 small moments of turning away, that's how trust disappears. Now, what does this mean for rebuilding trust? It means that if we're the ones who broke it, we have to stop looking for one grand gesture to fix everything. It's not about writing a long apology letter or making some dramatic promise. It's about showing up over and over in the small ways that actually matter. It's keeping the little promises. It's saying what we mean and meaning what we say. It's following through even when no one is watching. It's proving moment by moment that we're safe again. And if we're the ones trying to trust again, we have to pay attention to those micro moments too, not just words, but actions. Not just what's promised, but what's consistently shown. Because trust isn't built in a day, but it is built daily. Accountability isn't an apology, it's action. We've all been there. Someone hurts us, betrays our trust, and then they say, "I'm sorry." Maybe they even say it with tears in their eyes, with that desperate look that says, "Please let this be enough." And sometimes we want it to be. We want to believe that if someone feels bad enough, if they really regret what they did, then everything can go back to normal. But the truth is, regret isn't the same as change. An apology without accountability is just words. I remember having a conversation with a friend who had been deeply hurt by someone she trusted. When she finally confronted them, they said all the right things. "I didn't mean to. I never wanted to hurt you. I hate that this happened." And for a moment, she felt relief because at least they understood. But then nothing changed. And that's the thing about trust. It's not just about the words someone says when they break it, it's about what they do after. Psychologists have studied this for years, and what they found is that real accountability isn't about just admitting what we did wrong. It's about owning the harm we caused, making a plan to repair it, and then actually following through without expecting instant forgiveness. That last part, that's the hardest. Because when we're the ones who broke trust, we want things to go back to normal as quickly as possible. We want to be reassured that we're still good people, that the person we hurt doesn't see us differently. But trust isn't about how we feel, it's about the experience of the person we hurt. So what does accountability actually look like? First, it looks like taking responsibility without excuse. Not, I'm sorry you feel that way, not, I didn't mean to, not, I was just stressed, just a full, honest ownership of the hurt we caused. Second, it looks like asking, not assuming, what's needed to repair the damage. Sometimes we think, I know exactly what to do to make this right. But trust is relational. It's not just about our plan to fix it. It's about asking the person we hurt, what do you need from me? And actually listening to the answer. Third, it looks like consistency over time. Real trust isn't restored in a single moment. It's earned in the daily effort to show up differently. It's about proving again and again that we're committed to doing better. And here's where it gets even harder. When we're the ones who were hurt, we have to watch for accountability, not just apologies. Because sometimes we're so desperate to move past the pain that we accept words when we should be looking for action. Trusting too soon, before accountability has been proven, can lead to deeper pain. But when accountability is real, when someone takes responsibility, listens, and follows through, it creates the only real foundation where trust can grow again. Because trust doesn't heal with words, it heals with action. Boundaries matter more than ever. When trust is broken, there's this moment, this now what moment, where everything feels uncertain. Do we try again? Do we walk away? Can things ever really go back to the way they were? And in that moment, the most powerful thing we can do isn't to demand trust or offer blind forgiveness. It's to set clear boundaries, because here's the hard truth. Trust cannot be rebuilt without safety, and safety comes from boundaries. I used to think of boundaries as walls, as something that kept people out. But that's not what boundaries are at all. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They're about protecting what's inside. They're about creating the conditions where healing is actually possible. Think about a wound. If you get a deep cut, you don't just leave it open and hope it heals. You clean it, you cover it, you take care of it. That's what boundaries do in relationships. They create a space where trust can be repaired without risking more harm. And yet, when we try to set boundaries after trust is broken, we're often met with resistance. Why are you being so distant? Can't we just move on? You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. But here's the thing. Boundaries are not about punishment. They're about clarity. They tell the other person, here's what I need to feel safe again. Here's what has to change. Here's what I won't accept anymore. And if someone truly wants to rebuild trust, they will respect those boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable. So what do boundaries look like in real life? Maybe it's saying, I need transparency if we're going to rebuild trust. I need to know you're being honest with me. Maybe it's deciding I'm not ready to fully trust you yet, and I need time to see consistent change before I let my guard down. Maybe it's setting limits on what's okay and what's not as a way to control the other person, but as a way to protect yourself. And sometimes boundaries mean realizing that trust can't be rebuilt, that no matter how much we want to repair things, if the other person isn't willing to respect the boundaries that make healing possible, we have to choose self-respect instead. Because boundaries aren't just about fixing broken trust, they're about making sure we don't break ourselves in the process. Healing trust requires time, not a timeline. When trust is broken, we want answers. How long will this take? When will I feel normal again? When will things go back to the way they were? We crave certainty, a step-by-step process with a clear deadline. 3 months of effort, and then we're good again, right? But trust doesn't work like that. Trust is human, and anything human is messy, unpredictable, and resistant to quick fixes. It doesn't follow a timeline, and trying to force it usually does more harm than good. I once had someone ask me, how do I prove I've changed fast enough for them to trust me again? And my response was, that's not your question to answer. Because trust isn't a switch we flip, it's a process we move through. Think about a broken bone. You can set it, you can care for it, but you cannot make it heal faster just because you want it to. The body heals in its own time. Push too hard too soon and you risk injuring it all over again. The same is true for trust. When we're the ones trying to rebuild trust, we have to accept that no matter how much we want the other person to believe us, to see that we've changed, we don't get to decide when they feel safe again. Our job isn't to rush the process, it's to keep showing up with consistency, with honesty, without a hidden expectation of when things should be back to normal. And when we're the ones trying to trust again, we have to resist the pressure to pretend we're ready when we're not. Because healing trust is not the same as holding a grudge. It's not about being petty, unforgiving, or making the other person suffer. It's about honoring the reality that we were hurt and that healing from that hurt takes time. Sometimes the person who broke our trust will get impatient. Why are you still holding on to this? I'm doing everything right. What else do you need? And that's when we have to remind ourselves, just because they want trust to be rebuilt doesn't mean it is yet. Just because they're ready doesn't mean we are. This is why forced reconciliation rarely works. If someone demands, forgive me already, trust me again, that's not rebuilding trust. That's trying to control it. Real trust isn't about pushing past the discomfort as fast as possible. It's about doing the work, sitting in the uncertainty, and allowing trust to return naturally when it's truly ready. And when that happens, it's not because we rushed it, it's because we earned it. Rebuilding trust starts with self-trust. One of the hardest things about broken trust isn't just that we lose faith in someone else. It's that sometimes we lose faith in ourselves. How did I not see this coming? Why did I ignore the red flags? Can I even trust my own judgment anymore? When trust is shattered, we don't just question them, we start questioning us. And if we don't repair that inner trust first, we're either going to rebuild trust in the wrong places or never trust at all. I've learned that self-trust isn't just about confidence, it's about integrity. It's about knowing that we can count on ourselves to listen, to honor what we feel, to hold the boundaries we set. Dr. Kristen Neff, who researches self-compassion, says that self-trust isn't about always getting it right. It's about how we respond when we don't. Because let's be honest, sometimes we misplace our trust. Sometimes we give people more chances than they deserve. Sometimes we stay too long hoping things will change. And when that happens, our instinct is to beat ourselves up. How could I have been so blind? But what if instead of shame, we offered ourselves curiosity? Instead of asking, how did I let this happen? We ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying, I can't believe I trusted them, we say, I trust myself to do things differently next time. Self-trust means believing that even if we've been hurt, even if we've been wrong before, we can rebuild. It means knowing that we don't have to stay guarded forever, but we also don't have to rush into trust just because someone else wants us to. And here's the most powerful thing. The more we trust ourselves, the clearer everything else becomes. We stop over-explaining our boundaries. We stop second-guessing whether our feelings are valid. We stop rebuilding trust with people who have done nothing to earn it. Because when we trust ourselves, we don't just rebuild relationships, we rebuild our own sense of safety. And that is where real healing begins. Rebuilding trust is hard. It's uncomfortable, it's uncertain, and it rarely moves in a straight line. But here's what I know for sure. Trust can be rebuilt. Not overnight, not with perfect words, but through small, consistent choices. It happens when we show up in the little moments, when accountability isn't just an apology, but a commitment to change. When boundaries create safety instead of resentment. When we stop measuring trust on a timeline and start honoring the process. And most of all, when we learn to trust ourselves first. Trust, when rebuilt with honesty and care, can come back even stronger. It won't look exactly like it did before, but maybe that's a good thing, because this time it's being built with truth, with intention, and with the kind of foundation that won't crack under pressure. So whether you're the one trying to rebuild trust or the one learning to trust again, be patient with the process, be honest in your actions, and be kind to yourself along the way. Good luck. You've got this.